Okay, we are on page Tet Amud Aleph 9a4. So just a quick review. We talked about the idea that when they dedicated the Beit HaMikdash, Shlomo HaMelech declared days of Simcha, and those days of Simcha continued. They had 14 days, 7 days, and 7 days. It turns out if there was 7 days, which is the days of Sukkot, and there was 7 days before that, in the 7 days that were before the 7 days of Sukkot, you also had a very special day, the day called Yom Kippur. And it tells you that they're eating and drinking on Yom Kippur. So the question was, where did that come from? And the Gemara basically broke down where it was that came from. We talked about the idea of Simcha, B'Simcha, Simcha on the day of Simcha, okay? And this is one of the things that we talked about in that instance. And they were worried that maybe they got it wrong. And in the end, we brought a proof. That was the last thing Gemara said, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I forgive you, don't worry, you have nothing to worry about. You're all kulchem mezumanim l'chei olam haba. You're all welcome for a life for olam haba. Then the Gemara said that there's another element, another line that goes in there, and that line that goes in there is that David HaMelech also, on this day, received a clear line from HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying that he had been completely forgiven for the story of Bathsheba. And the last thing that we mentioned is that the people, when they saw that Shlomo HaMelech tried to dedicate the temple, and he had to invoke David HaMelech's memory in order to be able to inaugurate the temple, and that's when they opened up the doors, the gates of the Beit HaMikdash were opened. At that point, the people that were against David HaMelech becoming the king, they had, so to speak, proverbial egg on their face. Okay? 9a4. Rabbi Yonatan ben Asmai, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, Tanu Parashat Nedarim be Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. These two rabbis went to study Parashat Nedarim, the topic of Nedarim, with Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Okay? What does it mean, the topic of Nedarim? Either it means the Masechet, or it means the topic in general from the parasha, to understand what the concepts were relating to those laws of making promises and oaths and shibot. They left Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai in the evening. So what did they do? They said goodbye. They asked us permission to leave. That's something that people would do to their rabbi. They would go to the rabbi and take leave of the rabbi. They would say, Rabbi, we're going to go back to our town. We'd like to ask your permission to go, for whatever reason they needed to go. Litzafra, the next morning, they came back again, and they again asked the permission to leave from him. Amalahu, he said to them, didn't you guys leave last night, that you came to me already? Why do you have to come again in the morning? Amule, they said, didn't you teach us? A Talmid that says goodbye, he gets this permission to leave from his rabbi. But then, for whatever reason, he winds up having to stay over. It's too late, he misses the train, there's no plane, whatever. He needs to go back in the morning and take leave again, to take permission again to go, because the expiration date of the permission expired. We have a proof of this, because it says that on the 8th day, Shlomo HaMelech sent the people home, and they gave him beracha. So you see that they left him on the 8th day. What's that? The 8th day? The 8th day of Sukkot is Shmini Atzeret. And on the 23rd day, what day is Shmini Atzeret? Right? Well, let's figure it out. On the 14th day, right, of 14th in the evening, we start Sukkot. So you have 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. The 22nd day of the month is the 8th day of Sukkot, right? Which is Shmini Atzeret. So the Pasuk says that he sent them on the 23rd. But it told us already that he sent them on the 8th day, which is on the 22nd. What do you see from here? A Talmid that leaves his rabbi, and for whatever reason stays in the city, he needs to take leave again in the morning. All right? So far, everything's clear. We have one question. The question is, why did Shlomo HaMelech tell them, take leave of them on the 22nd, if that day is the holiday, they're not allowed to travel? Yeah? So we have that as a question. We're going to come back to that. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, seeing how these two rabbis, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim and Rabbi Yonatan ben Asmai, he's seeing how they were strict with the laws of leaving your rabbi and getting permission to go and retaking permission in the next morning if you needed to do so from the rabbi. Bnei Adam halal, these people, anashim shel tzura, and they are people literally of stature. Now this is very interesting. Just want to delve into the words for 1 second. Anashim means men. Usually anashim is reserved for like men of importance. Okay, it says that like by the spies. It calls them anashim. Okay. So whenever we're talking about anashim, we're talking about men that are people that are important. B'makom she'en anashim. There's two lashonot. One is b'makom she'en ish, but the other one is b'makom she'en anashim. Right? Anashim means people that are leaders, people that are. So they are anashim shel tzura. Tzura means a shape. They're men of shape. So they're translating it to men of stature. Right? But what's interesting is tzura literally means that they have a shape. The way I see it is, when you see people who stand on principle and they don't bend from the principle, that means that there's a certain shape to the person. They don't, right? In that beautiful language, the use of language. So anashim shel tzura, there's something that they stand for. They don't bend over that item. So they knew that there's a halakha of asking permission. They came in the morning. Listen what he says. What?
Was it the year that they canceled Kippur, which maybe their last?
So that's a good question. That is a good question. It is that year, but the question is why? Why would you be able to do that? For Yom Kippur, you had a reason, for whatever reason was, to be able to eat and drink on Yom Kippur. But for this, we didn't have a reason. All right? Anyway, what does the rabbi tell them? This is fascinating. Zil gabehon de levarchuch. He tells his son, who's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's son? He's with him in the cave. Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon. Tremendous Talmid Chacham. He tells his son, go get a beracha from these guys who came to be his students. I also thought that was very interesting. The idea that a rabbi can have respect for his students. Is that interesting?
No.
No? Why don't you find it interesting?
Should have respect for his students.
But I'm saying I find it
Learn a
interesting.
lot from the students.
I'm saying I find it interesting because I don't think that that's always the case.
What are you trying to say?
I think that I have respect for my students, but I'm not saying. I'm saying I don't think that's something which is all too common, right? And I think I've talked about this many times. That there's an obligation to honor and have respect for your parents, but there's also this idea that parents, at a certain point in their life, need to start respecting their children, not in the same way, not in the same measure, but that there's a respect for the person who he is, the person that they are. And I think a lot of the challenges in families come from the fact that a child does not feel respected. And the father thinks, well, I have to respect you, my son. You should respect me. And he's right. But respect literally is not exclusively it can be mutual, just in varying degrees. Anyway, Zil gabehon de levarchuch. He tells his son, go to them for a beracha. Az al ashkichinu. Anyway, he goes to the rabbis. The rabbis, being rabbis, what are they talking about? Not sports. The karamu kraya adadi. They're asking question one to the other. Ktiv pales ma'agal raglecha v'chol derechecha yikonu. Pales ma'agal derechecha raglecha means measure or weigh, right? The way of your feet. In other words, choose the way your feet are treading. Choose your path, okay? And if a person chooses carefully where he treads, how he walks, so then your ways will be established, won't be destroyed. They won't be ruined. You'll have a long way to go, and your road will be established. But the pasuk also says, Orach Hayim pentifales. Orach Hayim means the pathway. Orach, not orech with a chaf. Orach with a chet, right? Orach Hayim pentifales. The way of your life, pentifales, you should not weigh. So one pasuk tells you that you need to weigh your steps between choosing this step or this step. And one tells you not to bother, don't weigh. what's the implications? When a person is traveling in this life, they have choices to make. The first pasuk is telling you, you have 2 mitzvot in front of you, weigh up which is the bigger one that you should do. The second one says, no, Ora Haim, travel on the road of life. Don't be busy thinking, I'm looking for the biggest mitzvah. The mitzvah that comes to your hand, that's the one you should do. Fascinating. So the rabbis are asking, one pasuk seems to be telling you to weigh, one pasuk seems to be telling you not to weigh. The Gemara answers, lo kasha, no challenge between these 2 pasukim. When you have a mitzvah which someone else could do, so then you're entitled to say, you know something, this mitzvah came to me first, even though I didn't start engaging with it yet. But he could do that mitzvah, and so anyone else could do this mitzvah. I want to grab the bigger mitzvah for myself. When the mitzvot could be done by somebody else, so then weigh. However, the second case is when the mitzvot cannot be done by anybody else. So since the mitzvah that came to your hand first was obligatory only on you, you don't have the right to abscond from your earlier responsibility in order to have the time to be able to do a second mitzvah. Why? But then you're leaving the second mitzvah. The answer is, anytime we have a rule that says, osek b'mitzvah, patur min mitzvah. If I'm in the middle of doing a mitzvah, another mitzvah comes, I don't have to stop this mitzvah to do that mitzvah. I'm in the mitzvah, I'm patur from that mitzvah. So therefore, I have an obligation to engage with the first one. If I engage with the first one, like I'm supposed to, on time, then the second one is not my problem. I won't get done, not my problem. I can only do one mitzvah at a time. So far, so good? Mm-hmm. So the rabbis have now clarified the difference between penti pales or pales, weighing or not weighing.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there a concept that you don't know the reward for a particular mitzvah?
Excellent question.
So if we don't know the reward for a particular mitzvah, how is one bigger than the other?
Excellent question. We'll have to cover that.
Okay.
Okay?
Meaning how you measure.
Right.
You mentioned avot.
Excellent question. All right? So let's continue. We're going to come back to it. Hadar Yatvi B'Kamebailu. They continued, okay, the rabbis are on a roll. They continued clarifying and learning together. B'Kamebailu, they asked, Ketiv Yikarai Mipninim. The pasuk says, the Torah is more precious than pearls. Now, Pininim, by the way, most often is translated as pearls. Pininim. Pininim.
Innards.
Right? Like a string of pearls is called pninim. Okay? Pnina is a pearl. My sister, my wife's sister is called, it's very common in Ashkenaz to call Penina pearl.
Wow.
That's what that is. Okay, if you ever worried, if you ever wondered. Many pearls are also called in Hebrew Penina. All right? Now,
I have a penny, penina.
there you go. He's got one right there. Okay? So Penina means pearls. However, the word Penina or Peninim is also used in a more general sense to mean precious stones or precious diamonds. Or so one usage is the particular and one usage is the wider, like a jewel. Okay? Anyway, not only is the Torah more precious than pearls, and all chafatzecha, a word chafatzecha could mean all your objects. But chefetz means when you want something. Kol chafatzecha lo yishvula. Anything that you could desire is cannot match the Torah. Ha chefze shamayim yishvuba. 1 second. It says kol chafatzecha. All your desires don't match the Torah. Indicating the desires of shamayim, right, are yishvuba. But, so when it comes to what's the desires of shamayim, let's say mitzvah, right? So it sounds like mitzvot can compare to the Torah. Kol chafatzecha lo yishvuba, all your desires. But the desires of shamayim can be equated to the Torah. Uchtiv, but it says also in another pasuk, v'chol chafatzim lo yishvuba, and all desires, not your desires. The second pasuk is including all desires, yours or heaven's. So the second pasuk would indicate that mitzvot also don't compare to Torah. Ta'afilu cheftzei shamayim lo yishvu ba. Even the objects, the desires of heaven, don't match it. And says the Gemara, so is Torah compared to, or can Torah be matched by mitzvot or not?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What? I know this is going to sound silly, but what's the difference between a mitzvah and Torah?
There isn't a difference in mitzvah and Torah. That what we're just asking is Torah a bigger mitzvah than mitzvot?
Oh, is a limud of Torah?
The studying of Torah, is that a bigger mitzvah than doing mitzvot? Morris, you understand what we just did?
Of course.
His question was, if you don't know the sachar of a mitzvah, how could you know which one's bigger? The answer is, we're using Pesukim to tell us. Like assuming we only had the first Pasuk, we would have a proof that Torah is a greater mitzvah than the other mitzvot. Okay? Okay, excellent. But the question is, what would be the proof for that? So over here the Gemara is saying, we have a proof for it. Because it says, Kol chafatzecha. But then the Gemara says, but elsewhere it says, Kol chafatzim, indicating that mitzvot also.
It's not the same word.
Chafatzim is the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, but
Chafatzim is the desires
Of the many.
of the many.
But with chafatzeha, you had a person who was, you could say you have a person's desire. So chafatzim really feels like it's just objects. In other words, it like grammatically it feels like chafatzim is more objects.
It's
than
multi-object.
It's just it could be multi-object or it could be multi-desire.
Right.
Im just adds
Right.
like many of them.
Right. Aya means that it belongs
Like
to somebody.
mitzriyim
Right.
just means more of the noun. Yeah? Okay. So whatever chefzi is, then that'll be the thing as well. Okay. By the way, that's a name in Hebrew. If you go to Israel, so a lot of the religious Zionists, they have very interesting names because they're very into Tanakh. Okay? Very into Tanakh. And they choose names from Tanakh. But not names that we are familiar with. Emmanuel, Avraham, Aharon, David, Moshe, not names like that. Chefziba. Where does that come from? The Navi says, about the Jewish people, that Hashem says, Chefzi, my desire, Ba, is in the Jewish people.
Wow, it's a play.
Yeah, but you meet all these people. Abba Shaul, interesting names. But yeah, so not just from the Torah, like Aminadav, that you'll find, but you find like Ishboshet, right? You never hear only in Tanakh, right? But these are names that they choose. Sar Shalom. I'm not joking, really. Achinadav. You ever heard of Achinadav?
It's a cool name.
Yeah, but there's so many of these.
It's like Jewish Indians.
That's an accurate. But they're taking it from the Tanakh, right? Okay. It's very biblical and it's beautiful. All right. Anyway, but the point was that you see chefzi is used as a language of desire of Hashem. Okay, so we have a lo kol chafatzecha means that the Torah is equal to mitzvot. Kol chefatzim tells you that even mitzvot are not equal to the Torah. The Gemara says, what's the answer? They answered, kan b'mitzvah she'efshar la'asotah yedei achirim. When you have a mitzvah that you're able to do through others, then Torah is greater. Okay? Kan mitzvah she'efshar la'asotah yedei achirim. Here's where mitzvah cannot be done. It's not going to be done by anybody else. There, you have to stop learning Torah and do the mitzvah. This, by the way, is halakha l'maaseh. Let's say I'm sitting and learning, and someone comes in, they're asking for tzedakah. Someone else could take care of the tzedakah needs, I don't have to stop learning. Why? Talmud Torah, kineged kulam, exactly like you just said. Okay? But if there's a mitzvah over it,
Nobody else could do it.
and no one else is going to do it, you have to stop learning. The question is why? Didn't I just tell you a rule that says, osek b'mitzvah, patur min ha-mitzvah? So Chazal deal with that, and they answer that the whole point of learning Torah is lilmod al menat la'asot. You're supposed to learn Torah in order to do it. The idea that you could be sitting, learning the halachot of tzedakah, and then tell the guy during tzedakah, I'm so sorry, I'm learning now. that doesn't fly. So if someone else could take care, by the way, this exact story happened to me. I was learning hilchot tzedakah in my house with 25 guys. There's a knock at the door. My daughter says someone's here. My first reaction is, tell them I'm busy, come back later. I have it. All of a sudden I'm like, I'm learning hilchot tzedakah. I don't think I could tell the guy to kish, right? Anyway, so I go to the door, and I want to give him the money and get back. Anyway, the guy launches into the whole spiel, and I'm trying to explain to him, like, of course, I feel, Hashem should bless you here. I'd like to give you a donation. The guy's not having it. He's showing me albums, and turning pictures, and in the end, I was losing my patience, and I realized this was literally he probably wasn't even human. He was probably Eliyahu Navi, right? If I was Zocher. And I realized this was my nisayon. Wow. So I said to him, you know something? I'd really love to see all the pictures. I said, but I have 25 guys over here. He's like, oh, that's very important. I said, I know. I said, I'd like to invite you in and show all the 25 people all the pictures. And then maybe some of them will also give to you.
That's great.
We invited him in. We stopped the class and he sat down. And this is exactly what we're learning. And the guy came in and he showed it. Everybody gave him. He's the happiest guy ever. Okay, I had one hat, buy one. Bogue 24. Okay. Said the Gemara. Amrule. They said to him. Finally, they looked up from the Gemara for 2 seconds. The two rabbis. Who do they see standing there? You remember, or you got sidetracked? Rabbi Shimon's son. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. My bayitacha, what are you doing here? Amalu, he says, Abba, my father said, Zil gabayu dilvarchucha. He told me to come to get a beracha. Amalu, they said to him, Yehira'ava tizra velo tehtzad. You should be zocheh, that you should plant and not sow, not take it in. Ta'ayil velo tepok. You should take in and not bring out. Tepok velo ta'il. Bring out, velo ta'il, not take and not take in. Bring out, not take in. L'chruv betach, your house should be destroyed. V'letuv ushpazach, and your ushpazach, your hotel should be settled. Libalbel petorach, your table, right, should be all mixed up. V'lo techezu shatach alta, and you should not see a new year.
What a blessing.
Wow. She biflage.
Who is this guy?
Huh?
Both of them.
That's crazy.
Sorry? Explain. Can anyone figure this out? Sounds very challenging.
Yeah.
The answer is unbelievable. The answer is they gave him something he would need to go back to his father and have his father explain. Because if they gave him beracha, he wouldn't have to go back to his father. They got a beracha once. They gave beracha in a way he'd need to ask his father what he meant, so the father would need to reiterate the beracha again. Geniuses. Not only that, I think there's another layer here. By sending him to them, what was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai doing?
Teaching him.
What was he doing? What did I say earlier? Sending his son, to his students for a beracha.
Respecting.
He was respecting his students.
Yeah.
The students are saying, what are we?
Right.
Go back to your father, ask him for his beracha. So they gave him beracha, they would have to come. So in the way that he gave them respect, they flipped it back and they sent him, so to speak, to get back the beracha from his dad. Gorgeous, okay? Ki ata legabe avua. Came to his father, Amalei, he said, Lo mebayet de beruche lo berechnan. Not only did they not give me beracha, avat tza'ure tza'uran. They caused me so much pain with this terrible beracha that they gave me. Amalei ma'amulach. He said to them, what did they say to you? Hachi v'hachi Amalei. He tells them the whole story. Don't take in, don't go out, don't take in, plant, don't sow. Amalei, he said, Hanach kulu bechataninu. Every single one of these is a beracha. Tizra velo tehtzad. What does it mean? You should plant. You should plant, and not reap, not cut. Tolid banim velo yamutu. It means you should have children and they should not pass. So that's tizra from lashon zera, okay, and lo tehtzad. You shouldn't have to cut. They shouldn't be cut down. Ta'ayul velo tepuk. They said you should take in and not bring out. Ta'il kalta v'lo limutu benach delifkun. You should be able to bring in daughters, right? Ta'il, bring in to the family, kalata, v'lo limutu benach delifkun. That your children will not pass, so that they will then leave you. Ta'il, bring people into your family, yani expand your family, but with consuegros and in-laws, and they shouldn't leave you. Tepuk v'lo te'ayel. He said, what does that mean when they said, take out and don't bring in? Tolid banta, you should have daughters and be able, v'lo yamutu guvrayu, that their husbands should not pass away, v'lehadu levatach, and then after the daughters that you are able to escort out of your home into the homes of your sons-in-law, their husbands should not pass, that they should come back to your home as widows. Lichruv betach v'letuv ushpazach. Your house should be destroyed, and your inn should be inhabited, should be settled. Tehai alma ushpizach v'hahi alma beta. That world is your inn. Okay, this world, hahi alma, is your home. This world is ushpizach. It's a temporary place where a person only stays for a short amount of time. The next world is a person's a permanent home. Dichtiv kirbam batemo leolam. The pasuk says when they let's just look at the full pasuk. This is a very interesting pasuk actually. Take a look at the bottom. You should see it over here. Kirbam batemo leolam. Okay, they imagine that their houses will live forever. Mishkenotam ledor vador. They're mishkan forever and ever. Kar'u bishmotam. They are called by their names ale adamot, on this earth. Okay, so the pasuk is saying, what does it mean that they imagine their houses will last forever? Al tekri kirbam ela kivram. Don't read it kirbam. They're imagining, but rather kivram, that in their graves, when a person is laid to their eternal rest, batemu leolam, they achieve and they go to their home, which is forever, which is olam haba. So what he was telling him is lichrov betach, that when you should live your life in a way where the temporary home gets depleted and destroyed, in order that the eternal home should be primary and last and be its most beautiful self. Libalbel pitorach. Where are we?
At the table.
9b2.
The table will be disturbed.
Al tikri kirbam ela kirbam. So in the pasuk kirbam batemo leolam, in that pasuk it means, as we said, okay, their graves batemo leolam. So now let's go back. What did he tell them? He said lichrov betach v'letuv ushpazach. So even though the world to come is your home, okay, for the long term, lichruv betach, let that stay, and you should be zochet to stay in the hotel as long as possible. Okay, lichalkel petorach. The table should be libalbel, should be mixed up. What does that mean? Bibani ubibinta. When you're sitting at the table, there's hummus on the table. Someone spilled wine. Why? Because there's people there. The table is surrounded by family. You should have a messy table, yani. What does it mean? You shouldn't see a new year. That your wife should not pass away. And you should not, therefore, have to marry another wife. Now, what's the connection between a new year and a new wife? The answer is nothing. But when a person marries a new wife, what does the pasuk say? There's something called Shana Rishona.
Yeah, the king.
Right? The whole year, he has to stay home. V'simach et ishto. He stays home and he gladdens his wife the first year of their marriage. That's Shana Rishona. So the pasuk says you should not have a new year, yani, another one of these Shana Rishonas of marriage, because you already have it with your first wife. Okay. Gemara continues. Where else do we find that people should give be'achot in such a strange way?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Rabbi Elazar was Rabbi Shimon's son.
Yes.
presumably very smart.
Yes.
How come he didn't understand what this was?
This is next level. So even within the rabbis, right, he was younger, and these rabbis were, his father told him, Anashim Shel Tzura. These are, massive Talmidei Chachamim. So the son did not understand the implication of the beracha, the depth of the beracha, and his father had to explain it to him. All right? Gemara continues. Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta iftar minei de Rav. He left Rav. As we said, they used to ask permission from the rabbi to leave. Amale libre, avu libre. So Rav Shimon ben Chalafta, who was leaving Rav, right? So Rav said libre to his son, Zil gabed el-varachach. Go get a beracha from my student Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta. Amale, he said, Yeher Ava, Hashem, it's be Hashem's will. Delot tivayesh, you shouldn't embarrass. Delot titvayesh, you shouldn't embarrass others. Ata gabe avu, he came back to his father. Amale, he said, Ma amalcha, Amale, milin ba'al ma'ud amali. He told me random things. I shouldn't embarrass people. They shouldn't embarrass, and people shouldn't embarrass me, right? Amale, he said, Berachach bechata d'verachan kudsha b'chol Yisrael. He gave you God's berachah to the Jewish people. V'tanaba, dichtiv, that the Torah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu repeated a berachah that he gave and repeated. Dichtiv, because it says, V'achaltem achol v'savoa. You should eat and be satisfied. V'hilaltem, and you will give praise. You'll thank Hashem. V'lo yavoshu ami l'olam, and my people should never be embarrassed. Then the pasuk says, "V'idatem ki b'kerev Yisrael ani," and you will know that I am Hashem amongst you. V'lo yevoshu ami le'olam, and my people will not be embarrassed forever. So you see, Hakadosh Baruch Hu twice gave a beracha that a person should not be embarrassed. So Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, who gave a beracha to the son of Rav, and he told him, you shouldn't embarrass other people. Lo tibayesh. Lo titbayesh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you see, gave that beracha 2 times to the Jewish people. Now, there's a couple things here that were interesting to me. First of all, the first thing is, the Gemara said, let me show you an example of another beracha which is similar to this. This is not really similar. Why not? What's the difference between the first beracha and the second one?
We're praising Hashem, nothing to do with getting embarrassed the first time.
Say more of that. More of a differentiation, but along those lines. In the first beracha, much of the strangeness of the beracha falls in something that's not nice. It's not good. So much so that you need to ask the permission and the question of his father, what's he even telling me? The second time, it's just an interesting thing. Yeah. He's like, don't scratch your knees. Yeah. Okay, what does that mean? Don't embarrass, don't get embarrassed, don't embarrass others. But at least it wasn't a bad thing. So the comparison is not so strong, number one. Number two, I would say that still, maybe we could ask, why did he bless him in this way, right? He blessed him in order that he should go back to his father, like we said about the first case. Go back to the rabbi. But over here, I don't know if it's enough that he should have had to do that. Because only he told him something, it was an okay thing, maybe it wasn't the hottest beracha I ever got in his life, right? But it's a nice thing, don't get embarrassed, don't be embarrassed others. But we also, by the way, we say it in the Birkat Hamazon, right? Shelo nikalem, lo nevosh, lo nikalem le'olam va'ed. So it says over here, you'll eat and you'll be satisfied and you won't be embarrassed. Mm-hmm. Eating satisfied, that's the precursor to Birkat Hamazon ve'achalta ve'savata. And therefore, in the berachta, you have the blessing of shelo nevosh, lo nikalem, because the double blessing of not being ashamed and embarrassed, you find in the pasuk. Okay, says the Gemara, the Mishnah. Okay, now actually there's a good place to end because it's 11 o'clock and we're going back into the laws of the women getting, the women with their makeup. Hazaku Baruch to Joe out there who's actually doing this class from the plane. Shuf.
Wow. Joey.
Wow.
Joey L'kayem Hashane'emar, to fulfill what it says in the pasuk. Ubelechtecha baderech. That you should learn while you're traveling on the road. Alamak. I think the stewardess has made him turn off his his video now. Okay. Alamak, boys. Hazaku Baruch.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Litraot.
Tuesday night?
Yes. Tuesday night. Stana. 1 second. Let me just double check. I had something coming up.